In a single seismic decision that stunned global markets, China has severed pharmaceutical exports to the United States, halting shipments of both critical raw materials and finished medicines. It wasn't announced with fanfare. There was no press conference, just an abrupt, calculated freeze. And now a quiet panic is sweeping across American hospitals, pharmacies, and manufacturing plants. The lifeline of modern medicine in the United States is unraveling, and the most disturbing truth is that this crisis was entirely foreseeable, yet utterly ignored. For years, Americans believed their healthcare system was self-sufficient, that the drugs they took, the treatments they relied on, and the life-saving breakthroughs they trusted came from a robust and independent domestic supply chain. But while attention was focused on innovation and pricing, an invisible dependency was forming. U.S. pharmaceutical companies, under pressure to cut costs and boost profits, slowly shifted the manufacturing of key ingredients overseas. China, with its cheap labor, lax regulations, and aggressive industrial policy, became the logical destination. What started as a cost-saving tactic evolved into a sweeping industrial shift. By the early 2000s, China wasn't just one supplier among many. It had become the global powerhouse of active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs. These are the essential compounds that form the backbone of nearly every drug, from antibiotics to blood pressure medications to chemotherapy agents. For certain categories of drugs, especially generics, China supplied over 80% of the global market. Without access to those APIs, American drug makers can't function, no matter how advanced their labs or how iconic their brands. Behind the scenes, this growing dependency was well known to industry insiders and quietly accepted by political leaders. It was more profitable to outsource, more efficient to ignore risk. Shareholders saw dividends, executives saw bonuses, and lawmakers saw campaign contributions. Consumers were none the wiser. Drug prices remained high, even as production costs plummeted. The label on the bottle might say made in the USA, but the substance inside was often created thousands of miles away in a Chinese facility. The relationship between China and the U.S. pharmaceutical industry was mutually beneficial for a time. American firms sold premium drugs to China's urban elite, while Chinese manufacturers handled the messy, low-margin work of making the raw ingredients. But while U.S. companies focused on profit, Chinese firms mastered production. They improved quality, scaled operations, and soon began to dominate the entire upstream pharmaceutical ecosystem. Then came the geopolitical shift. After years of rising tensions, including tariffs, sanctions, diplomatic spats, and nationalistic rhetoric, China has decided to push back in one of the most strategic and devastating ways possible. Through a series of new regulations and inspections, it has effectively frozen pharmaceutical exports to the United States. Technically, it hasn't banned anything, but by weaponizing red tape and redirecting shipments to friendlier trade partners, it has paralyzed America's pharmaceutical supply chain without firing a shot. The consequences are immediate and deeply alarming. Hospitals are reporting shortages of antibiotics like amoxicillin and azithromycin. Cancer treatments are being delayed as oncologists struggle to secure key chemotherapy drugs. Insulin, relied on by millions of Americans with diabetes, is becoming harder to find, and prices are beginning to spike. Even everyday medications like antidepressants and blood pressure pills are increasingly at risk, as pharmacies scramble to secure dwindling supplies. Every category of modern medicine now feels the pressure of this invisible blockade. This crisis has exposed a system built on short-term thinking and fragile dependencies. Big Pharma, while generating record-breaking profits, failed to invest in redundancy or domestic manufacturing capacity. U.S. policymakers, eager to avoid political fights or costly regulations, allowed critical industries to hollow out. The result is a healthcare infrastructure that looks formidable on the surface, but is deeply vulnerable underneath. Rebuilding that infrastructure won't be easy. Creating domestic API manufacturing capacity will take years, not months. It will require massive investment, regulatory reform, and a fundamental shift in how the country views pharmaceutical production. From a business opportunity to a national security imperative. And even then, challenges remain. China controls not just finished APIs, but many of the chemical precursors required to make them. No country can simply decouple overnight. While Washington scrambles to respond, China has shown the world just how much leverage it holds. Its dominance in the pharmaceutical supply chain is no accident. It is the product of long-term planning, industrial policy, and a clear-eyed understanding of economic power. This is not just a drug shortage. It is a strategic crisis that threatens the foundation of modern American healthcare. The United States now stands at a crossroads. It can continue to react, piecemeal and unprepared, or it can recognize the seriousness of this moment and begin the hard, painful work of rebuilding resilience. The illusion of self-sufficiency has been shattered. The question now is whether that illusion will be replaced by action or by further decline. China has made its move. The clock is ticking on how America responds. They were already stretched thin. Small-town hospitals, rural clinics, places where every dollar matters, where every delay can mean a life, are now the first to crack. The drugs are vanishing. Shelves are empty. Pharmacies whisper warnings to anxious patients. Emergency rooms brace for a wave of crises. Infections untreated, illnesses unmanaged, pain unrelieved. And it's not just rural towns. Across America, doctors are being forced into impossible decisions. Who gets the last dose of insulin? Who waits for antibiotics that might never arrive? There's no guidebook for rationing medicine in a modern country. There's just the unbearable silence that follows the phrase, "We're out." The truth is devastating. For millions of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, missing a few pills isn't just inconvenient, it's deadly. And no, the American people didn't cause this. This crisis wasn't born in the waiting room. It didn't come from the hands of nurses or patients. It was built, piece by piece, in boardrooms and backrooms, by politicians chasing sound bites, by lobbyists writing laws, by corporations that valued stock prices over national security. Remember the promises? Trade wars meant to bring jobs home. Speeches about rebuilding American strength. But while Washington boasted, China acted. Quietly, strategically, patiently. While we picked fights, they built factories. While we postured, they planned. China didn't react to the chaos. It waited and chose its moment. And now, they hold the leverage. Not as an enemy, but as a nation that prepared, while we didn't. Meanwhile, the BRICS nations, China, India, Brazil, Russia, South Africa, are no longer waiting for Western approval. They're building something of their own, a parallel pharmaceutical system, independent, resilient, affordable. India is doubling down on generics. Brazil is funding public biotech. Russia is creating vaccines outside Western patents. South Africa is building the continent's medical backbone. China? They're the backbone behind them all, supplying, scaling, shipping. This isn't the future. It's already here. Western pharmaceutical giants, the ones that shaped policy, dictated prices, controlled patents, now face a reckoning. For decades, they ruled through exclusivity, through scarcity. That model is breaking, and with it, their grip. Developing nations now have an alternative. Not just cheaper drugs, but a new kind of healthcare system. One that doesn't ask permission. One that doesn't leave people behind. And here at home, the ripple effects are growing. Health insurance premiums are on track to explode. Employers face rising costs. Small businesses may lose benefits altogether. In an economy already strained by inflation and instability, this drug shortage could be the tipping point. The recession trigger no one saw coming, but should have. So while the US chased profits in politics, China built capacity. While we deregulated, they diversified. While we debated election cycles, they planned for decades. Now they're not just the world's factory. They're becoming the world's pharmacy. And the message is clear. Resilience isn't built on slogans. It's built on strategy. If the US wants to recover, it can't just talk about independence. It has to invest in it. In people, in manufacturing, in science, in supply chains. It needs leaders who understand that national security isn't just about missiles. It's about medicine. About whether a mother can find antibiotics. Whether a cancer patient can survive. Whether ordinary people can live without fear of running out of what keeps them alive.